said that good fences make good neighbors. Well, if you have pets, redundant fencing can make even better neighbors and maybe safer and less stressed pets. There are a number of reasons you might want to use redundant fencing, and there are a number of ways to do it. One reason might be if your neighbor has a reactive dog on one side and your dog reacts to that dog by running up and down the fence or trying to dig through. Your dog might be less stressed if you start the border further away from that dog. Sometimes that's all that's needed to calm your dog down. Or your dog might require some training to stop reacting to the neighbor's dog. But a redundant fence is a great way to jumpstart and speed up that training, that desensitizing that's needed. Now, of course, the safest place for your dog to be is in the house. But if you do need to leave your dog in the yard for whatever reason and you know your dog is a digger, redundant fencing will not stop your dog from digging, and it will not keep your dog in the yard, but it would slow down the digging because the dog will have to dig under two fences rather than one. If you have a jumper, of course, your redundant fencing will have to be tall, but a lot of dogs need a running start to jump. So if they're able to jump over one fence, they might have a hard time doing a straight vertical leap to jump over your next fence. Also, if you have neighbor issues, like the neighbor's dog trying to dig under or jump over, this might slow down your neighbor's dog getting into the yard. I had an issue once where my neighbor's dog was actually ripping the planks off of my fence, off of my wood privacy fence. So I had a chain link fence inside my wood privacy fence to keep the dog from actually getting into my yard. Once you decide to use redundant fencing, you have several options available depending on the size of your yard, depending on how much work you want to put into it and how much money you want to spend. The video that you're looking at now is a friend's house. She has a very large yard, so she was able to have a large gap between the two fences, which is very ideal. And she was only having issues on one side of a yard, so her whole yard isn't fenced around. As you can see, she has plenty of room in between the two fences if she wants to mow or do other work. And she just used some plastic stakes that have a small metal tip on the bottom, and you can easily press these into the ground with your foot, even if you have a rocky ground. And then across the metal stakes, you can lay deer fencing, you can lay some goat fencing. And what she did here, she used some type of fencing that she got from Tractor Supply. And then in order to have a sort of pseudo gate to go in and out of the fence, she set up a doggy playpen. She actually used one of those doggy crates that you can take apart, and she used those. Now this next video shows my yard, and I actually went a much more expensive and much more difficult route. I have around the outside of my yard a wood privacy fence, and on the inside of my wood privacy fence I have a chain link fence that was put up by a professional. And I tried to leave as much space as I could between the chain link fence and the wood privacy fence. But I have a much smaller yard, so I wasn't able to leave as much gap as my friend has. Ideally, if you're able to, I prefer to have a wide enough gap so that you can fit a lawnmower in between the two fences. But since my yard is pretty small, I just left enough room so that I can walk between the two fences with a weed eater if I need to, if the grass or the weeds get too tall in between the fences. I also have a double gate on each side. And having a double gate, you've seen those at the dog park, they're great in case your dog is able to run past you while you're opening one gate. They still have another gate to get through for extra safety. This next clip, you'll see some landscaping fencing that I use. And this is just something I put up temporarily around an ant bed until I'm able to eradicate the ants. I put some things on top of the ant beds and then fencing around it just to keep my dogs out. And this small landscaping fence could also be used as redundant fencing. Sometimes, even if your dog can get over a fence, just having that extra barrier there works as a psychological barrier. Also, once again, having that extra fence there is a great training aid to teach your dog perimeter training positively. The higher and sturdier your fencing, the safer your dog will be. The lower your fence is to the ground, the safer your dog will be. You might even consider burying part of the fencing, or even better, digging a deep trench and pouring concrete. But make sure you always call before you dig. But no matter what type of fencing you have, the safest of all for your dog is for your dog to be in the house when he or she can't be supervised. Thank you so much for joining us. For more pet tips, please check out Puddin's blogs. Thank you.